Welcome to another episode of the 100% podcast. I'm delighted to welcome a returning guest to the show. Mr. Sam Gibson is a newfound author. He is a keynote speaker and an emotional eating coach. And it is also Sam's third appearance on the 100% podcast today. Welcome back to the show, Sam. I'm delighted you can be here today.
I appreciate that, mate. Obviously, the other two are online, but this being in person is extra special. So, yeah, third time, and I think it's going to be the best one today.
100% would be the best one today, mate. We seem to keep bumping into each other at these new milestones. Like last time, it was after I hit my 100th episode with you. And then now we've passed 200. And then obviously there's a massive milestone for you this time as well. So can you tell us about you becoming a newfound author?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. So, yeah, before I get into it, here it is. Yeah, this book. It just took us 7 months to write, Harry, but it was really 10 years in the making. You know, I had an idea about maybe 7 or 8 years ago to say, right, I definitely want to write a book, but this is 10 years worth of my experience of struggling with my own disordered eating habits, to be honest, and the last 7 or 8 years of coaching other people through theirs as well. It's all accumulated in this book, so it might have only took us 7 months to write, but like I said, it was almost a decade worth of insights, tips, tricks, do's, don'ts, knowledge. So yeah, that's been my main project this year, and I'm really excited to talk about it.
Insane, man. So the title is Why You Overeat. It's something that you see when you talk about weight loss, when you talk about healthy living, when you talk about diet culture, that a lot of people get stuck in the trap of doing. And I know that we've spoken about this on previous podcasts, but to have it in a book that people can use as a resource if they're in the midst of trying to change their habits with eating and those kind of things. It's quite nice as a reference point to be able to go back and look and be like, oh yeah, Sam told me about this like as a client maybe 2 years ago, but I just need to refresh my brain. Is that something that you've utilized it for?
Absolutely. I think this is it's a blueprint. It's a how-to guide that pretty much includes everything that you need to know about why you overeat, what issues may crop up in your personal life about mindset, emotional regulation, past traumas. I can maybe get into the concept of the 7 voids, which I know we've spoke about before. We'll do that a little bit later. I'll talk a little bit about that. So it's the exact framework of how I'd coach a client in person from struggling with disordered eating or overeating habits or binge eating habits through recovery, through the healing process, then ultimately getting to the result that they want. I talk about it all in this book. So it is like a how-to blueprint that people can keep reusing over and over again.
Insane. I think one thing that's really important to say on the pod is that to give you some kind of some credit from and respect to have that written down and to spend 7 months on a project is something that is definitely hot on the agenda at the moment. Is like quick gratification and instant gratification and wanting things quickly. 7 months into a project is a long period of time. If we talk about the writing process and you being an author now, which is quite a cool thing to say, right? And have that under your, or like the feather in your hat of, is that there would have been some frustrations and stuff along the way, like with the writing process and even the printing process now, which obviously I know you're doing with Amazon, and I'm sure there's been a few different challenges. What have you learned when it comes to writing a book? A, about the process, and then B, what have you learned about yourself as well?
Great question. So to be honest with you, Harry, writing this book wasn't actually that difficult, right? The initial sitting down when I went to the library, I'm going to do day one. I'm going to go to the local library. I'm going to create a plan for this book. Probably procrastinated on it for like 3 hours, and I was there for about 7 hours. But when I went through the pain of just eventually getting an idea mapped out, I just broke it down into a series of like mini projects. I'm sure you've read this book before, James Clear, Atomic Habits, right?
Yeah.
That is the standard for anyone who wants to learn about goal setting. And his concept is like dream big and then reverse engineer it down to the tiniest little micro decision. That's what I did with the book. So I got this idea out there. The initial pain of having to sit down and go, what the hell am I going to talk about? That was hard. But after that, once I got this concept out there, I just treated it as like you do with yourself, a social media post. Like almost see every little idea that I had. I'm like, I'm going to write a post on that, and then the post's going to be really long. And then once I just kind of got that out there, it was like, right, how can I turn this into a couple of more paragraphs? How can I turn this into a couple of more pages? And then I almost had like a compilation of loads of different like blog posts or articles that eventually I could turn into a book. And obviously I got some help with the editor and someone who's a professional with books and whatnot, and taught us how to create a story out of it. But once I got started, it was actually fairly easy. The hard part was the formatting, the editing, the spelling mistakes that kept cropping up, the changing the chapters around, the trying to find the story arcs. I had loads of great ideas, but it wasn't written like a book. But the actual getting all of the words out, that was easy. It was the final editing and the formatting, and then you mentioned before about the printing and Amazon and whatnot.
Yeah.
Oh God. You'll see this like preview on Amazon or wherever you're printing it, where it'll show you like what your book looks like, right? And then there'll be like these margins on the side to say that's where the fold's going to be, and half of my text was getting cut off when I uploaded it, so I had to go reformat it, do it again. It failed like, I'm not even kidding, like 10 times. It was like the 10th attempt to get it right, and then eventually I seen it and I was like, right, let's do it. That was the hard part, but writing it wasn't hard because I kind of done the whole James Clear Atomic Habits thing. I reverse engineered it. I was like, this is the idea that I want to get out there. So I just wrote everything down. It wasn't polished. It wasn't formatted. It was clunky. It was just like a word vomit of ideas on the page, but it was creative and it was a starting point. And then I fine tuned it and just focused on like one chapter at a time. And at the end, I had all these chapters that I was like, right, I've got the makings of a book here. I think if anyone out here listening right now has their own idea for a book or a creative project or even a course or something, I think you can get so focused on like what the end product has to be, and then you're like, well, I'm a million miles away from that, and then you procrastinate. I'm like, just get an idea of what the end product is, and then start with like the tiniest thing. So for me, it was just like, right, let's write a chapter on this, let's write a chapter on that. Because I was used to social media posting, writing, and emails, it was fairly easy. So it wasn't the writing that was hard. It was the getting it out there. It was getting it to print. That was the hard part. That was stressful. But like I say, the writing was actually thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, insane, mate. I think one thing that crops into my head there, and a good question to ask you is, although I know that you as a coach and the knowledge that you have can be really positive and people can take away really vital lessons to overcome their reasons of why they're overeating and get a handle of it, or at least understand maybe the whys behind they're doing the actions that they're doing. And I can back that up by saying that people down my way will have listened. I know people that have listened to you speak on my pod and are like, that Sam Gibson's really good, knows what he's talking about. But within all of that, same as the comments that I've had, the positive ones about the podcast, great what you do, took this lesson from it, loved it. There's always that side of even with me with the vlog now, a very new thing, and something actually maybe a previous version of myself would have gone, I don't want to do that. It's what influencers do or whatever. There's always that side of there's always that side of the thought process that's going, like for you, maybe it was, no one's going to, like, who's going to read it? I'm going to spend all this time doing it, 7 months of effort. Same with me. I know obviously a shorter process with a vlog, but I'm going to do all of these mini little captures of the day. Like for what? Like, how did you overcome those barriers?
Well, that's another good question. And again, I'm going to be really honest with you. I had the idea to write this in 2022. So it was a goal that I wrote down at the end of my 22 review of the year, like we always do on the program.
Yeah.
And 2023 went by, didn't write it. So I was faced with the discomfort of going, oh man, that was a goal that I set in 20. I didn't do it. Right, 2024, it's going to be the year. Same happened again. So at the end of last year, like December last year, or start of this year, January, I sat down and was like, right, why am I procrastinating on this? Right, why am I procrastinating? And obviously a lot of limiting beliefs come up, like, oh, people won't read it, like you've just said, or, oh, I'm not a writer, I'm not an author, you know, like maybe a bit of that like ego coming, like, who are you? Like, you're just a kid from Shields, like nobody cares, you know. So I got all these thoughts and went, right, okay, I need to overcome them. But then another reason as to why I put it off is because I didn't create the mental space to sit down and actually do it, mate. So I essentially kind of paused my business and serving clients, because you know that term, you kind of pour from an empty cup. And I realized one of the reasons I wasn't creative with my energy in order to write the book, yes, I had the limiting beliefs and all of that, and the self-doubt, which I just have to overcome. There's no getting over that. You've got to do it. But what I realized is I didn't have the physical and emotional space to sit down and actually be creative, because it was being spent on serving, problem solving, fixing others, which I'm grateful for. And I'm in a great position, you know, in my business to say that I've become successful at that. But I couldn't do both. So I kind of had to pause. And then that's when the creative energy came in, and I was able to write the book and deal with some of those self-doubts. Because when those self-doubts are there, but you don't have space to sit in it and be slow and methodical, you'll always procrastinate, you'll always come up with excuses, and you'll believe that devil on the shoulder or whatever it is. So I had to almost stop and say, right, I'm not working with any clients I only planned on it for 3 months, turned out to be 6-7 months. But I basically paused my business. I served the clients that I already had, kept ticking over. So I wasn't looking to scale my business anymore, get new clients and go on calls and do ads and social media posts and campaigns. I just needed to pause that. And when I did, I was able to overcome the doubt and just do it. It was like I mentioned before, the writing process was so easy. It was just getting it out to print that was hard. But what was harder was the procrastinating on it for years, because because, like I say, that self-doubt was so strong, but I wasn't giving myself a chance to overcome it because I was fast and frantic and 40, 50 hours a week of coaching. I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So this, like I say, I procrastinated on this for years before I actually did it.
Yeah, and in terms of that, that procrastination was coming from a place of fear, which obviously is just like you're coming from that place of fear if you're holding yourself back from doing something. That's not, obviously it's not a criticism, and that's something that you've overcome in many different aspects of your journey, from when you were like suicidal and depressed to where you are right now, and that in some ways could have probably been the hardest one to overcome because it was such a big step to make, committing to what you didn't know was going to be 7 months, but actually getting over that like inner critic essentially to do the thing. I mean, we saw in the vlog I did of the travel vlog that I've made coming up to South Shields, I'm like sat in a car park, like talking to people about why I've chosen certain foods to keep me full on the way. I'm like sat there fucking like looking at people, like, well, thinking that other people are looking at me thinking, oh, look at this idiot. But actually, it's just something you've got to get over. And I say in the video, like, I feel like such an idiot here, but it's just something that's going to get easier over time. And it's the same with when you beat your fears and beat your limiting beliefs, is every time you beat one, the next one maybe becomes a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's absolutely that. And whether it's vlogging or podcasting like this or writing, there's always going to be that devil on the shoulder about, oh, what will people think of me? But here's how I got over this, Harry. I was like, well, have I ever read a book where someone's been open, vulnerable, and not being inspired? Or have I read a book rather not read? And I was like, no, I didn't judge them. I was always like, wow, like they're brave, they're vulnerable. I was like, well, people will think that about me, so fuck it, just write it. Just open your heart out, just talk about what you struggled with. And like at the start of the book, like my story, before I get into the teaching points, I talk a little bit about my journey with that. You know, this book is essentially done in 3 parts. It's my story and how I overcome my disordered eating and mental health issues. The story of how my clients have, like my clients read some of this book, and I don't mean physically. I mean, emotionally, they inspired me to write the book because I've witnessed them in real time go through the trials and tribulations, and I talk about some of the success stories in there, and talk about the character arc of when they started and what they had to overcome and who they are now. So they wrote a lot of the book. I just kind of like delivered this as like a truthful message based off my own experience, the experience of my clients, and the future experience of people who haven't went through their transformation yet, who are yet to read the book, but who will. So that's the 3 parts of it. It's the future people who haven't achieved their journey yet, but they're going to if they follow the framework in this book. My experience of how I overcome my issues, and my clients' experience of how they overcome their issues. So that's like the 3 parts of the book, you know. But like back to that question about the self-doubt and judgment, I've never read a book where someone opened their heart and judged them. So I was like, I'll never know if people are judging me anyway. So even if they are, who gives a fuck? I'll just do it, because I would never know for sure. So I might as well just believe that they won't, because I haven't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's insane, man. Talking about the book then,
Yeah.
if you were to summarize the 3 reasons that people, or the 3 lessons that people will take from this book, the 3 things that you would really want people to take from this book, what would they be?
Okay. I'll start with number 1, which is basically the reason I wrote the book is because I believe it's truthful. Okay. Have you heard of George Orwell before? Do you know George Orwell?
Yeah.
So he has a great quote which I love and I reference a lot. He says, "In times of universal deceit, those who tell the truth is a revolutionary act." Yeah. So it's an act of revolution to tell the truth in times of deceit. So I've got some statistics and I wrote them down so I don't forget them, right? And I talk about this in my book and all of my trainings as well. But do you know that 90% of diets fail worldwide?
I've heard a stat similar to that, yeah.
Yeah, so people can go and research this, but there's a gentleman called Marcel S. Runge. I've seen this statistic in a study that I found in 2017. I believe he's a professor at Harvard, could be somewhere else, but it's one of the big ones, right? It's out there. It's a pretty well-known study where he was talking about the relapse rates of diets, essentially. So it was an analysis of diet culture. And when I seen it, that was just the abstract, you know, so the main study, like the headline, the article, and I read it, and obviously it gets into a little bit about unsustainable methods and emotional eating, things like that. But yeah, that's that 90% of people who attempt to lose weight gain it all back in 12 months or less, right? So back in the day when I found that out, I was like, God, I'm a personal trainer and I help people lose weight and get in shape. And I also witnessed that the same people will come back year after year, whatever results they got with me, they gained it all back, right? So I thought, right, if 90% of diets fail, that means that the system surely isn't it isn't set up for success long term for a lot of people who are struggling with it. Okay, so another stat for you: do you know that 12.5% of teens in the UK and 22.5% of teens worldwide struggle with an eating disorder?
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, and also consider the stigma of that.
Mm.
How many people aren't even talking about it? Or like in my case, when I was a teenager and I was binge eating, purging, yeah, I had what I can only describe as orthorexic and anorexic-like tendencies, which I get a lot into the book. I was in so much denial that I didn't even know I was doing that myself.
Same, yeah,
I
man.
normalized it. And I know you've had your own experience of that as well. So consider that those numbers of teenagers who struggle with eating disorders, especially in the UK, are probably dramatically less than what they actually are, because they'll be underreported, right? Another stat for you: do you know by 2035, the weight loss industry, and that's basically supplements, diets, gyms, fitness stuff, which are all good, but surgeries and medications and everything that could be under the banner of weight loss, right? It's predicted to rise to an $896 billion industry by 2035. It's currently $500 million industry a year. Sorry, half a trillion, yeah? 1,000 billions, a trillion. So if it's almost going to be projected to be 0.9 trillion in 10 years' time, and we know that the diet relapse rate is 90%, that's feeding that industry. So the reason I wrote the book was because I think the system is set up, not intentionally, it's just the way it is, but the people who are in positions of power, if they're making that much profit and they're projected to double their income through the weight loss industry worldwide in the next 10 years, why would they tell the truth about it? It's incentivized for profit for people to be stuck with eating disorders, with emotional eating tendencies, with yo-yo diet, and with, I gain loads of weight, I lose it, then I gain it back. There's an industry that's been propped up on the back of people being confused, not having the right support, not knowing how to overcome these issues. And as a society, we're just treating the symptom. It's like, I mentioned it before, it's like you get your leg bit off by a shark and you try and put a plaster on it. Like, that's what we're doing with the world. The world's a shark bite and we're trying to treat it with sticky plaster. Saying, just go on another diet. That one didn't work, so go on this one. Or try and attempt to, weight loss your way out of depression and anxiety or a serious eating disorder. Even in the NHS, the way that they treat disordered eatings is to put them on a diet. There's no conversation around past traumas. What's your environment like? What's your family situation like? What are your relationships like? Have you got meaningful work? Have you got any hobbies? Do you have ways to experience joy and pleasure? They're not talking about that. They're just like, eat this, eat that, eat less. Like, especially people with binge eating who've been diagnosed with binge eating disorder in the UK, they put them on a 1,200 calorie diet. There's just people who are struggling with serious amounts of overeating, and they're going, you just need to eat less, not addressing the psychological reasons at all. Why? Because that number, 896 billion by 2035, why would they treat it properly if that's how much money they are going to make if they continue this current system? Yeah. That's why I wrote the book.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you were to think, like, paradoxically, I guess, there's a lot of element and a lot of treatment that you could say has been created recently, which is to help people with their, like, appetite suppression, to help with weight loss. Like, obviously, we're talking about the weight loss jab here. There's a lot of goodwill, and I know a lot of nurses, and I'm sure you do, that are great people. But it's the system in terms behind that that's driving it. Yeah. And you have to wonder, like obviously, why that is. And like, if it smells like shit, it probably is, right? It's like a terminology. When you look at the money, the figures behind it, it's quite clear to see why the system drives that attitude towards like disordered eating and those kind of things. When it goes into the system and you're funneled through a system, I think it needs to, like, they want to deal with the situation quickly, just like we find, and I had experience with when I was suffering with anxiety and depression, get put into a funnel. They wanted to deal with you quickly. There was none of the stuff that what I would consider has helped me fundamentally turn my life around. None of that was spoken about. It was about like quick fixes, like documents that never really helped, conversations that weren't that useful, all of those kind of things. So yeah, it is a bit of a paradox that it's there to help, but actually it's probably doing the opposite thing.
I mean, it's a bit of a conspiratorial way of looking at things, but I think that anyone with half a brain now who's able to think critically can see that the world is very paradoxical in nature. A lot of a lot of lies are being sold as truths, and a lot of truths are being sold as lies. And like you say, your experience with like mental health struggles and going through the system around mental health, everyone who I speak to who had experience of going to therapy, going to this and that, always has that taste in their mouth where they're like, well, it wasn't fundamentally bad. It just didn't really feel personal. It didn't really feel like they were cared, and I got better results by doing other things. Well, if we just look at the money, like follow the money, it tells you everything. If we follow the money that the weight loss industry, meaning people who want to lose weight, people who are in a bad position, want to lose weight for whatever reason, that 896 billion, it's relying on their misery. It's relying on their confusion. It's relying on them to be in that position. So why would they teach it? So from the ground up, why would they teach kids at school how to eat properly? Why don't they have nutrition classes? Why don't they teach adults about spotting disordered eating in children? They don't want to do it because that means the money tree would stop. And people in these industries, they're not doing it on purpose. They're just part of the system. Like I said, they've been indoctrinated through these systems. And even when I was a personal trainer, I wasn't going out of my way to make sure that 90% of my clients failed the diets, but that's just human nature. If human nature is about quick fixes and treating symptoms, then these struggles and these challenges are always going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, which means that we've got to come up with new, inventive, creative ways to treat the symptoms. And that's medication, that's pharmacology now. You mentioned about the weight loss medication before. Like, they need a bunch of people to be emotional eaters, so they go, oh, that medication sounds great, I need that. So they need people to have problems so they can sell them solutions. So this is why I said this book is actually a revolutionary act that I've done, because I'm telling the truth. I'm saying it's not about treating symptoms, it's about the root cause. And if you heal the root causes, the need to eat or overeat or even struggle with your disordered eating will not be there, which means that you can't be profited from anymore. The system doesn't want that.
Yeah. Do you feel like by releasing this book, it's almost I don't want to put words in your mouth first, so I'll ask the question. Is it a bit of a V's up kind of vibe? Like, this is because I feel really passionate about the information that I know my people that I've worked with have received, and I know that there are some untruths that are being said in professional environments that maybe shouldn't be, that you're like, right, here's the fucking truth, and I'm going to do everything I can to get it out there to people who need real help.
Yeah, I mean, I don't talk about these systems. I'm talking about now, the money and this. I don't talk about these systems in the book. This book is very much a how-to guide for someone to pick up and say, I struggle with my eating, right, overeating, how to stop. Oh my God, I want to do that. It's very much based around the user experience, yeah? But who's to say I won't write another book in the future where I talk a little bit more about this, right? So this book is more of a framework for the individual who struggles about that. But without saying in so many words, it is a bit of a, two fingers up to the system, because I'm actually telling the truth about why people struggle.
Yeah.
Because what do people think? They think it's about willpower, and your clients will say this as well, mate. It's about willpower. I just need more motivation. I don't have time. I don't have energy. When in reality, like I can talk about the 7 voids. It's a framework I've used with my clients a lot. There'll be 7 reasons why people emotionally eat, right? And this ranges from disconnection from daily life, like they hate their job. Like I bet you've had clients before who they eat really good when they're feeling good, but the moment work stresses them out, they just can't handle their emotions, and they end up overeating. I think it was either Freud or Carl Jung said this: the 2 most important decisions you'll ever make in your life, where you choose to work, who you work with, what your work is, and how meaningful it is, who you choose to marry. Well, those are 2 things that massively impact mental health. They are 2 things that already massively impact relationship with food as well. So if you hate your job, more likely to impulsively eat. If you're in a toxic relationship dynamic, more likely to emotionally eat. So there's 2 things I talk a lot about in the book, about how important your daily life is, and are you getting meaning out of your life? Many people are stuck in dead-end jobs, mate. They hate their job, they hate their life. I've had a job I hated. I don't know if you have in the past. You'll know how much it impacts your mental health. So I talk a little bit about that. That's another void. Relationship, like I said, food can take the place of a lover that you don't have. Food can take the place of a safe, stable relationship with a parent that you never got. Food can take the place of a sense of community that you don't see. Many people struggle with overeating in the lockdowns because they were isolated, they were disconnected, they maybe weren't getting on with their partners. I've got clients now, and I make this joke where I say, I'm not a relationship coach, but I might as well be, because anytime I'm on the phone, it's like, this person said this person said that. My husband said this, I'm not getting on with my partner, we're not having sex, we're not being intimate, we're at war with each other, we're in conflict, or I'm going through a divorce, or I'm single and I don't want to be. A lot of eating issues are associated with relationship dynamics, because food makes you feel safe. It'll make the nervous system feel safe, because subconsciously, how are you definitely going to stay alive? If you eat, right? So people use food for comfort from the discomfort in their relationships. I talk about a lack of hobbies. If I've got a client and I say, tell me about the most exciting thing you like to do week to week, and they go, nothing. I'm like, well, that's your problem. If food's the most exciting part of your life, you've got an issue.
Yeah.
Like, no wonder you can't stop eating and lose weight if literally the most enjoyable thing that you look forward to in your life is what takeaway you're going to get. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one of the 5/5 of 100%, one of the 20% is that I'm working on something that I care about right now. And the amount of maybe masterclasses I've done for other coaches or clients that I've dealt with, that they're like, they get a little bit dejected by that one at times because it hits and they're like, fuck, like I don't have anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But then they also don't know what it is. I think what's really important is if you're listening to Sam and I today and you don't have that hobby and you don't have that thing you're passionate about, that's actually a really cool thing because not the fact that you don't have one, but you've got a million things that you could go out and try to find out if you enjoy them or not. Yeah. And then there's that one thing that will stick, whether obviously Luke Harrison's example would be Warhammer. Mine would be like World War II documentaries or playing football. Yours would be your martial arts or walking the dog, you know, those kind
Fishing's
of things.
Mine.
Fishing as well. Yeah, I know you love your fishing as well. On that note, that sense of being in nature with fishing, is that something that you find really important to just keep you grounded in?
So that's actually one of the other voids.
There you
disconnection from nature.
Nice.
Yeah. So you've got your little five frameworks you said, which will probably just be a regurgitation of mine.
Yeah. More
I've just
likely.
got 7. Yeah. So number 6 is disconnection from nature. And again, when I've worked with clients, because I was a personal trainer for years, online weight loss coach, now an emotional eating mindset coach, I've seen this in real time. I've almost had according to my Stripe account, I've had over 2,000 customers, right? So that's 2,000 clients I've worked with personally and intimately. So I almost have my own test subjects, I've almost been doing a 10-year study without even realizing, 10-year study without even realizing, where I've witnessed in real time what the problems are. If I've had clients who got outside regularly, had a connection to nature, did things like, being grounded and things like that, they tended to regulate their emotions better than clients who are stuck in the house all the time and never went outside. So disconnection from nature is another void as well that can cause you to overeat. But back to that question about me and my hobbies, absolutely, that's exactly what fishing gave us. And fishing actually helped me write this book. I mentioned before about having to slow down from the hustle and grind of business in order to get creative again. The reason I procrastinated on this book is I didn't have any creative energy. It was being completely siphoned off into work. So I had to kind of stop a little bit of that pause. And one of the things that helped me get my creative spark back again is literally just sitting in nature, the sun shining, catching fish, sometimes you see other animals come by, you just had peace. It's like a form of meditation, and anyone who's into that fishing will tell you that. So back to that hobbies thing, like find a hobby that brings you joy. It'll help you with all areas of your life. Find a hobby that slows you down, allows you to think and connect with your body. Find a hobby that grounds you. Find a hobby that gets you out of the hustle, the grind, I need problem solve, the fast, the frantic. Because when you don't have that, where you're getting your pleasure from? And back to what I said before, food's the most exciting part of your life. Like a lot of people, you ask them, what do you do on a weekend? Go out for food. What else do you do? Go to the pub. What else do you do? Not a lot. Like the only sense of reward is food. And that can be ingrained in a person's mind because of that upbringing, that childhood, their partners, their friends. A lot of people don't have any like actual hobbies where they get a sense of joy, creativity, or a sense of play. And that's what causes the brain to switch off, relax, regenerate, build neural connections. We do it through play. It's how children learn as well, how children develop their brain. They play, they get creative. Well, many adults are stuck in dead-end jobs that they hate, toxic marriages that they can't leave. They've got past traumas that they've never addressed, which has left them with a lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of fears, a lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of coping mechanisms. They've got no hobbies outside of going to work, scrolling on their phone and eating. It's like, no wonder you're struggling. So I talk about this a lot in the book. So the 7 voids before we move on. Past traumas obviously impacts emotional eating a lot. Another statistic for you. People who've experienced sexual abuse in the past, 4 times more likely to struggle with binge eating disorder or any form of disordered eating. And that also translates not just sexual abuse, but emotional neglect, other forms of emotional abuse in childhood, not just physical, but physical, sexual, and emotional abuse creates disordered eating. So a lot of people who struggle with disordered eating, it's actually a trauma response, not a problem with food. It's a trauma response, and food's the coping mechanism. But because they never addressed the trauma and learned ways to regulate through them emotions, that's the consequence of it. And then the last one is just a lack of connection to the future. Like if you, as the old saying goes, if you don't have hope, you can't cope. So many people are like, I don't know who I am. I lack purpose. I'm not excited about anything. I've got no goals. I'm not working towards anything. I don't know who I am. They'll say things like that, and I'm like, that's going to create a sense of uncertainty and a sense of unease in the body that you will just look for a quick fix. And I think that's the doorway to depression and anxiety. I think it's like, I don't know who I am. I'm stuck in a dead-end job. My life's monotonous. I've got nothing to look forward to. I've got no sense of purpose. That's when people will use any coping mechanism. So this book, I could have wrote this book about alcohol, right? And it would have been exactly the same kind of thing because people use alcohol for that. I just happen to talk more about food because that's my expertise and my background. But this is really a book about emotional disconnection, depression, anxiety, past traumas, and talking about those voids that I've just rattled off there in your personal life that lead to a coping mechanism.
Hello, YouTube. I'm stopping you in the middle of this episode because a lot of you who stick around and watch my podcast episodes aren't yet subscribed. So, do me a favour before you carry on watching the rest of this episode and just click the subscribe button. And you don't even need to watch every episode, but what it does do is it boosts this channel and it helps me a long, long way. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, I think one thing that I will ask, just to tap into your expertise, is off the back of that, and maybe it'll go back into the voids, right? And what somebody may be missing. It could be 2 things, could be 5 things, could be all of them, right? One thing that I notice a lot and have dealt with a lot with my clients, I'd like to say that my 5/5 of 100%, if they use all of them, they'll create their route out of this language that they use. But the one that comes up a lot for me is sugar cravings, sweet tooth, and being addicted to some kinds of food. From what you're describing today, it sounds like it's all linked back into the same subject.
Yeah. So this is kind of, I can see both sides of it. So there's another great book called Ultra Processed People. Have you heard of that? By Chris Van Tulliken, I believe you pronounce his name.
Yeah, was he on?
He's on BBC,
Yeah, he was on
documentaries, all that
BBC,
sort of stuff. Yeah, knows what he's talking about. But he's got a book where when I listened to it via audio, it kind of changed my stance on the whole food's not addictive. So just to kind of go over that, food isn't addictive like alcohol and medication or other substances, right? There's not a chemical addiction. It's more of an emotional dependency. But there is certain foods and certain ingredients that are in highly processed junk foods that can show on the brain as being addictive because of the dopamine release. So we're all battling a little bit with actual chemicals that are in all the tasty, nice junk food that we can almost get addicted to. But it's being driven, right, by the emotional voids, the environment behind that. So it's actually a little bit of both. So I'm not a fan of where people are like, oh, it's all down to sugar. Sugar's addictive. We need to ban sugar. I'm not a fan of that. Have you actually seen they've brought it in? I was in Nando's the other day, mate. They've actually got a sticker. I don't know how they're going to police this. Like, have they got Nando's coppers, Coca-Cola coppers, standing there saying you're not allowed to have
Maybe
Coca-Cola?
one day.
But they've literally got a sign up saying you're only allowed 1 Coca-Cola, and after that it's got to be diet. And I'm just like, this is like
Whoa.
tip of the iceberg shit. Like, we're not talking. I talked before about how they're just talking about the wrong stuff and treating the wrong things. That's not going to help someone with past traumas who've used food as a way to numb themselves into oblivion from their traumas, just like any other coping mechanism.
Makes no sense, right? Because you walk like from the forecourts that you walk in across the country. You got Nando's next to a Cineworld.
Yeah.
Going to Nando's, you're only allowed 1 Coke, but you can go next door and fill a fucking bag up that big full of pick and mix without
exactly,
any.
mate.
Yeah, it's insane. I think one thing that's really important to like remember on that front is that I've said this on the podcast before. Johan Hari's book *Sapiens*. The one thing that clicked for me with it was that when we were like Homo sapiens walking around the earth, cavemen, we were hunter-gatherers looking for different kinds of foods. It was incredibly rare to stumble across a surplus of food that was high in calorie.
Exactly.
So we are innately wired to go and find, I don't know, whether it be berries or whether it be some kind of gorge on it. So there is some element that when you listen to people's stories and you hear about them say it, you can kind of go, well, it's human nature to do that. But then if you were to add that bit of knowledge in with How to Train Your Chimp by Professor Steve Peters, you're only leaving yourself in the chimp mode there.
Yeah.
It's about overcoming that before you've really gone into the void of, like, I don't know, like 500 grams of chocolate later or a whole bag of sensations later or whatever your crux may be. Yeah. It's about enabling yourself time to process the action you're about to take or the action that you're about to do. Like, you're literally mid-session and go, right, I'm going to just pause, put it down, take a breath, go and do something, whether it be a hobby or whether it be read a bit of a book or whatever it may be, and then be like, do I still want to do that? Yeah. The answer would probably be no every single time, because as we're aware, that motion of eating afterwards, you think it's or in my experience, if I think back to when I would like secret eat and hide things like down the back of the sofa or hide chocolate wrappers in the bin, you'd think it was going to make you feel better at the time. afterwards you know that it doesn't.
So I say this to my clients all the time. I say, oh, what's the trigger? Well, I just want the chocolate. I'm like, do you really want the chocolate, or do you want how the chocolate makes you feel temporarily? So it's actually about escaping an emotion you don't want, right? Not the actual chocolate. The chocolate tastes nice in the moment, but after it, it's guilt, shame, overwhelm, sadness, depression, anxiety. But really wasn't the chocolate that you wanted. It was the feeling that the chocolate gave you, a temporary escape from emotions you didn't know how to feel. So back to what you said about Homo sapiens and just being stuck in that chimp brain and whatnot. Let's look on that for a second, right? So a lot of people don't know this, but the nervous system, right? It's a 2 million year old tool that's been developed from when we were monkeys and trees to what we are doing now, literally talking to each other on a bloody podcast with technology, right? That's 2 million years of evolution from monkeys to what we are now, right? Homo sapiens sapiens, I think we are classed as technically. That's the Latin name, like a second version of Homo sapiens, right? So all of that time, we've got a nervous system that's been built off survival. Like we've got essentially very good at survival. So like you mentioned before, an abundance of food is there. Our ancestors would have literally gorged, right, until their bellies were bursting, and they only would have stopped because an instinct in them would have told them, hey, if you overeat, you cannot run away from predators, so stop. That's what the fullness is. It's actually a safety thing, right? It's to tell them you've had enough. If you eat too much, you'll not be able to move, and a predator will get you. So we would often, this is what dogs do, they like stop until they're sick, right? It's like an animal thing. It's nature. Eat now because you'll definitely survive. In the modern world, we're not under those survival circumstances anymore. But our version of a saber-toothed tiger coming to eat us is now financial stress. It's now not being good enough compared to other people. It's social media. It's the media telling you about all the world that's going on. That's the physical threat. We can perceive it as different, but the nervous system just sees it as a threat. So the nervous system doesn't understand the difference between actual danger and perceived danger. Like you mentioned before that you struggle with panic attacks and anxiety. Well, I did as well. Right, I did as well. I talk about it a lot in the book. And it would drive me crazy at the time when I was young and I didn't understand, because I'd just be lying in bed in the middle of the night. I'd wake up and then my heart would start pounding in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was dying. I went to hospital twice saying I'm having a heart attack, and it wasn't. It was just anxiety. So how can my brain almost respond exactly the same as if there was a saber-toothed tiger in my room trying to eat us, right? It's because that's what the nervous system does. It perceives all threats as physical. It doesn't understand the difference. It can't take the risk, right? It can't take the risk. It just sees it as a threat, right? So now let's look at that. In that moment, someone's like, oh my God, I'm anxious, I'm stressed. What would be one way you definitely would survive? Well, you would eat. So that's the primal link. Emotional eating is actually primal. And also look at what babies do as well. Babies cry, mum feeds it, baby feels comforted. When little babies don't know about their emotions, they don't have a sense of self yet, they can't regulate their emotions, they don't know anything, they're just on autopilot. And I've seen a child attachment expert talking about this, that babies actually think that they are their mothers until they're about 3-year-old. They think they're the same thing. They think they're an extension of the mother, and that's them.
Wow.
Because they rely on them for safety. They think that they're the same thing. That's why they always look for them.
Which is why
that's their safety.
In the future, if a mother has been going through some form of trauma or whatever, that kind of experience can come out in the child later on in life. Yeah,
it's all linked. So up until about 3 years old, babies don't even realize that. Oh, I'm separate. They're just completely attached to their mother. So that's where we all learn to comfort eat. As babies, we cried, mum feeds it, makes us feel better. Because a baby can't say, oh, I've got tummy ache. A baby can't say, oh, I feel frightened, I can't feel. It doesn't understand it, it just cries. Okay, so emotional eating or comfort eating, let's call it that. Eating for comfort is one of the most primal acts we can do. We've been doing it forever, because one way you definitely survive is you would eat. So in the modern world where we're not under actual survival threatening circumstances, but when we're stressed about life, we're stressed about our bills, we're stressed about our partners, we're stressed about the world, the future, all that sort of stuff, a way to get comfort is to replicate the same thing.
I think I've got it down as like an extras thing if we needed a subject, but what it has done is it's the Manjaro weight loss jab thing is it's made me think, well, like it's given me a new perspective on it to be, well, actually, this is such an innate thing. It's a human nature's way of protection. And to think that if you're an emotional eater and I understand why people want to do it, because it is about quick fix and it is about trying in inverted commas to solve the problem. If you are somebody that emotionally eats and you've got those tendencies to cure yourself, it's actually quite worrying to think that the NHS even, or a pharmacist or an online person with no real experience can just, on the back of one form, like send you a jab that, it may cure your hunger, but it's not getting to the bottom of lacking a form of purpose or all of the positive habits that you've mentioned with the 7 voids.
Yeah. I mean, I can see both sides of that. So I've talked about this on podcasts before, and I've even sent emails and posts about this, but I can see two sides of this. So no one is sitting here and saying that these Majerno, Ozempic, whatever you want to call them, don't work, right?
No.
On the surface, they're actually very intelligent, because all weight loss medications in the past were all about appetite suppressing and like chemicals, like stimulant based. This one is very, very clever. It's a GLP-1 hormone, which mimics the feeling of fullness. Now, I mentioned before about our ancient ancestors would eat and eat and eat until they were full. That signal then goes to their brain to say, don't eat anymore, you don't need it, because it was actually dangerous to eat past that point. So it's recreating that signal artificially. Very intelligent. Very intelligent. But you are messing with nature, so you're getting that temporarily. So God knows what that's doing to the actual body, the endocrine system, the hormone system, the body's nervous system. But it is very intelligent. And if someone was to say to me, would you rather get bariatric surgery where you literally mutilate your stomach, because that's what it is, to chop out that stomach, or take that, I would choose that all day long. And for to me, people who are like, a TV show, like £600 Life, and those people are, I have compassion for those people, because clearly there's a lot of trauma. Potentially there's enablers in their life as well. This could be loads of past abuse and things like that. For them to get that position where they're bedridden and they're literally going to die in 6 months, I think this medication could be perfect for people like that, where it's a last resort. You are going to die.
Oh, for sure.
You need to solve this problem now. I think that's who the medication should be made for. But let's look at the business model of this medication. It's a monthly subscription. There's no incentive to treat people and get them off it. There's an incentive to keep them on it forever, and that's what we're going to see. Also, there's no long-term studies on this. It has not been studied for a decade. It's supposed to be studied for 5 to 10 years before it's put on the market. It's absolutely not. It's in the experimental trial phase now, which, not getting my tinfoil hat on, but we also seen that in 2020 with a certain vaccine, shall we say, and that didn't go to plan. So this is just that Mark 2, isn't it? It's just, let's lose weight. And they've swapped from vaccines for health issues to, it's weight loss now.
Yeah, I think, obviously, I have said it on the podcast before as well. When it is administered in the correct way, you get the professionals behind you. And by the way, like neither of us are sitting here saying that we are weight loss vaccine experts, right? But what we are experts in is we're experts in changing people's lives for the better.
Yeah.
And we've both changed our lives for the better as well. So if you want like a first-hand methodology of changing your life, you've got one. And you've also got experiences. You've got 2,000 clients. I've got hundreds of clients that have worked with me in some capacity that have taken away, fuck me, he's right, actually. These quick fixes aren't the way forward. And I think it is just, there's so many different elements now of life around us and uncertainty around us that will make people think that that is the right way to go about it. So how do you conquer that then with... how would you suggest that people conquer that if they are that close to trying a quick fix?
So I've got some clients who are on it, right?
Yep.
And I've never told them, I don't think you should take it. I've went, right, you're an adult. You should make an adult decision. I'll support you either way, right? So that's, first of all, that's what I did. So this is my opinion on this medication. Number one, it's not tested long-term. So we don't actually know the long-term studies. So if you're wanting to take it, just go into it with a pinch of salt, knowing that I could have some health complications in the future. That's the trade-off that you're making for the short-term gain, okay? There is no long-term studies. To say it's safe and give it the tick would be a lie, okay? So I kind of be on board with that. However, lower doses has shown to be less likely to get health issues, and it can still be quite beneficial. So I would be for it if you're going into it with an idea of, right, I'm not taking this forever. Because if it's forever, that means that you're not going to do the work. You're not going to do the inner work needed. The goal should always be, I'm going to take this medication to eventually be in a position where I don't need it anymore. So I think if you go into it with that mindset of, I'm going to take very low dose because this is untested and I could really damage myself. I've actually got a client whose family member had to get that gallbladder removed and they nearly died because of this medication, and they were taking more than they were supposed to out of desperation. So there is that. Like I say, you don't have to quote me. You can find your own studies on that and your own stories. So I would say go into it with the mindset of, I'm taking this as a head start to really give me a bit of a platform and a boost to get ahead of my emotional eating because I'm clearly out of control. I get it. Take very, very low to moderate doses to begin with, right? But also get some psychological help as well. And I would be all for if the NHS come out and said, right, we've got this medication that will really help people who struggle with overeating. It's going to change lives, which it already is to a degree. But if you take it, you also have to pay for, or as a part of the payment, psychological treatments with an actual specialist who's going to talk about these voids, how to change your life. So eventually your life is going to be so good that you don't need this medication anymore because you're going to solve the problem of emotional eating, you're going to solve your mental health issues, and you're going to have a better relationship with food because we'll teach you how. So if it was done alongside physical intervention, I would be all for it, but it's not. Like you said, it's come in, what do you struggle with, right? Sign this form, give us your monthly subscription and just take that and you'll lose weight. Well, what happens to the people who come off it? They go straight back to where they were. So now we're faced with a conundrum of I either lose all the results that I get because I'll come off it and not address any of the issues, or I'll just take it forever, which God knows what will happen. So it would be great if it was done alongside psychological help under the pretense that you're not taking this forever. If the NHS said, we're going to prescribe this for you because we think it's great, but this can't be forever. There has to be a goal, a year, 6 months, whatever it is. And by then, you'll have a better relationship with food because we'll teach you how and we'll help you get your life on track behind the scenes because that's what was causing the overeating. But if they're not doing that, it's just a monthly subscription. And that's my gripe with it. I'm not fully against it, but I don't think it's being utilised in the right way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there is a place for it on the market with the right people administering it to you with the correct advice and getting the methods to take into your lifestyle afterwards and the habits. And the way that I've just had a thought out loud, I will think out loud, is the way that I've just thought about it in my head is that when I snapped my ACL playing football, it would have been the same as me going and getting the operation, but doing none of the physio work and the muscle strength work and the mobility work afterwards, and then expecting to go back out and play as I was before my injury, right? And I think that's one way that if you are listening to this podcast and you're like, how can I think about this in a better way? Or I am maybe thinking about signing up to get or be intrigued about am I in the right category right now to get this medication to help me lose weight? Are you prepared to do the work on the side as well? If the answer is yeah, do you know what? Fair enough. Take the habits away and give it a go and see how you feel afterwards. If it makes you feel great, then superb. But if you're still feeling the same and still doing the same habits that you were doing before you were taking the medication, then you're either on it for life as such, or
think of the financial. It's gone up. It's about £300 a month now.
Yeah, do you know what? I keep reading different things saying like it's going up, and then I keep reading studies that saying they're going to make it more affordable. So yeah.
The bottom line is it's a large chunk. Let's say what's the average wage in this country? £2,500 a month.
Yeah, potentially that.
£300-400. People have got mortgages, car payments. That's a big chunk of money that people will be spending. And I hate to say it, but a lot of people will be that desperate. They will be getting into debt and they will be putting that on a credit card. And if we know after talking about it like this that it doesn't actually treat any of the psychological stuff, just temporarily blocks the urge to overeat, which is very, very clever, but it's still pushing down the truth within you. It's still suppressing some sort of
There's a reason that these people have got...
That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah.
Why are they in a position why they're overeating in the first place? So the first question, if I'm a patient, I go to the doctor, I really want some of this Ozempic. They go, yeah, sure, we'll figure out a way to administer it. Could you just tell me, why do you think you're overeating? What got you to this point where you need this medication? They're not asking that because they don't want to go to the truth. They don't want to talk about the voids. They don't want to unpick the 90% of diets fail. They don't want to talk about disordered eating. They don't want to talk about the root causes to that, how it's massively linked to trauma and the lack of emotional dysregulation, because that means that medication might not be prescribed. And it's about numbers and bums on seats. It's about numbers. It's a business at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think like if you were to look at it from some kind of empathetic way towards like a GP in a surgery, they are getting inundated with people, and everyone knows it's like impossible to see a doctor right now. So if they had the time to, I'm sure.
I mentioned before about the system, how the system's set up to be, it's like, you ever heard of the term shit runs downhill?
Yeah.
So like that's what it is. So these NHS receptionists, I know they get a lot of stick.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
the doctors say, they're overwhelmed, and like they make jokes about the memes about how angry and raging the NHS receptionists are. But consider their phones are going all day long because their boss is telling them to do this, and then their boss's boss is telling them to do that, and it just goes up and up and up. The whole system's just completely on its arse, mate. Like, we'll admit that. So to have these interventions and these actual questions that we're talking about, it doesn't actually work in real life. So we're talking very idealistic here, but that still doesn't take away from the fact that that's how it should be.
Yeah.
So it's not the doctors, like you said, he's just doing his job. He's coming to work and going, right, I've got a duty of care. This is what I've been told by my superiors that I do that. I'm going to follow that. Otherwise, he doesn't get paid and he doesn't. So everyone's stuck in this system, and it's going to take a massive overhaul, right, from the ground up. And I'm hoping like the book, conversations like this, anyone, and you're one of these people in our classes, that you're a fitness professional, but you also approach it from a mindset perspective. I think the industry is going to massively change, where I think the old fitness industry is going to be completely dead in the next 5-10 years. the only people who are going to survive are going to be people who are talking about health and fitness while linking it to mindset, while linking it to emotional regulation, focusing more on preventative care and treatment, not just symptom treatment, like you do with your clients. Your main goal is to help them lose weight and get in shape, right? But you talk about hobbies, you talk about mindset, you talk about lifestyle, and the goal's got to be, eventually you'll be in a position where you don't even need coaching anymore. You'll be able to be one of my graduates and never relapse again, and I'll be able to use you as a poster boy, a poster girl. The people who have that mindset in the fitness industry, who are linking it with prevention and healthcare and mindset, that's what's going to thrive in the future. But until we overhaul the system, we're not going to see that. Like I say, the medical system's massively overloaded. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not intelligent enough to know. But hopefully through conversations like this and talking about why are people overeating?
Yeah.
What's getting people to the point where they need the gastric surgeries, where they're stuck in bed and they can't even leave the house? What's going on with that person? What's underneath that person? What's that personal story? So I talk more about that, and relating about the Ozempic stuff, they're not doing that. The first question they should ask is, why do you need this? What's actually going on? Why are you overeating? They don't answer that. They say, what diets have you tried? I've tried this, tried that. Nothing works. All right, okay, try this. What do you mean nothing works? All you've tried is treating symptoms. You haven't tried about cutting that out at the root, which is being in a position where you don't need to overeat.
Yeah, and if you're trying things like, without mentioning, we can mention different kinds of diet, couldn't we? Without trying things like Slim Fast, Weight Watchers, Zoe, whatever it is that's
all
trying to
symptoms.
Yeah, exactly.
Symptoms, and the entire industry is built on what symptoms can get me what treating of the symptoms can get me the fastest results. But like I say, that them statistics, 90% of diets fail. 500 billion currently is what the weight loss industry is worth, projected to be 896 billion by 2035. It's not in the industry and the people who control the industry's best interest to make sure that relapse rate of 90% gets any lower. The higher that relapse rate is, the more money that gets spent, because the need to treat the symptoms is higher. Imagine if there wasn't any symptoms. That's my goal, is to help people heal from the root and prevent these eating issues from being there, because they've learned how to heal those voids, and they know what to do to have a healthy relationship with food.
Mate, insane. In terms of you would openly call yourself a critical thinker.
Yeah.
This day and age, it's like I'm not going to say a dangerous flag to wear but it's definitely something that you've got to be comfortable within yourself to talk about all of the things that you talk about. Where does that come from, and why are you so passionate about being a critical thinker?
Great question.
I'll give you a little. It took me a while to develop into one. I think when I was younger, I was somebody that I originally thought the system at school was okay, and I actually didn't hate school.
Same story.
Didn't hate school at all, but then I started to see through things, and I've always been an advocate for fairness. If you ask any of my ex-girlfriends or current girlfriends, but fucking hell,
girlfriends?
Yeah. Or my current girlfriend is that I am a real fair guy, but I only do that because that's my standard. If I'll give you what you give back to me in a way that if I see you behave in a way that I think is real respectful and fair, I'll do that back to you. And then you go into employment and you're whoa, this person's not treating me or somebody else that I respect in a way that I respect, so that's not fair. And then they can get away with it because a little bit of authority or whatever, and that happens a lot within the world, and that's where my critical thinking comes, because I see through the hierarchy maybe, and that hierarchy void on me now that maybe I had when I was a kid is gone. Not as though I don't respect authority, because I do respect authority if it's earned and it's respected.
Preaching to the choir, I'm exactly the same. So you mentioned about school before. So I wasn't stuck for an answer there. I was just thinking about how I'm going to start this.
Yeah.
I know the specific moment where I realised I'm a critical thinker, right? Your reception and in primary school. So you're a 5-year-old, you're sitting on a little floor like this. I remember being 5 years old and actually having this realisation. It's probably one of the first that joke where you say you gained consciousness and all of a sudden you realise you're a little person. You're like, whoa. I gained consciousness about 5-year-old, right? I remember the teacher standing on a little whiteboard like that, dog, cat, ABC, 1, 2, 3, and they're going, D-O-G, and the kids on the shore were all sitting down with their legs crossed going, D-O-G, dog, 1, 2, 3, and I'm sitting there looking at them going, what the fuck are these doing?
You literally
I
said,
remember
what the
looking
fuck in your
outside.
head.
I remember looking outside. I just want to go outside and run around. I want to play with my sharks. I remember
Yeah.
having that realization. I love sharks. I was fucking obsessed with sharks at the time. I was like, I don't want to do this. This is bullshit. Obviously, I probably wasn't saying those words in my head, but that was what I was thinking.
This is
And I
boring or
remember
whatever
this
it may
like
be,
a
yeah.
visceral reaction. Like, I remember that visceral reaction. It was like in my little 5-year-old's head, I felt really heartbroken that I had to come here every day and sit on the floor and just this is pointless. I don't see the benefit in this. That's where it started, and I always questioned everything. And that's where it started. I just, if I don't feel something like viscerally within me, I don't get that sense of connection to it. I just think this is not for me, and I don't like being forced into things. I know you said about authority before. I'm the same as you. I respect authority when I think it's authority when it's respectful to me. But the moment I'm told to do something that I don't see the value in, I rebel. I've always been like that. That's why I struggled at school. I was fairly intelligent, right? Articulate, intelligent with subjects, but I didn't really try. I didn't get the best grades in a lot of things. I mean, I didn't fail any. I passed them. Got like maybe a C in maths because I just didn't see the benefit in it. I've got reports from school, right? And I know because they're still in my house after I moved out years ago, and I've got them in boxes that I should have got rid of. Slagging us off, disruptive, but he's passing all his grades, so I don't really know what to say. Every single one of them was like that. I was disruptive. I would have definitely been diagnosed with autism or ADHD or something now. I was hyper, and that was just because I had so much creative energy that I just wanted to spend on things that I enjoyed. So I become a critical thinker because I don't just believe what I'm told. I'm like, where's that coming from? Right, you think this is the best thing for me. Why? What's the evidence? So I developed that ability to critically think by being in school. Like I say, 5-year-old, I have the memories now. I still see one of my mates from reception. I do kickboxing with him. He was literally sitting next to us, and I remember him sitting there as well. I remember looking around, like I can still remember it to this day. And all the kids in the class are just like regurgitating, repeating what the teacher's saying, and I was just going, why do I have to do this? I don't understand this. I don't enjoy this. I just want to go outside and play. That's the thought and realization that I have, and that's been my entire my life.
One of my worst, before we move the subject on, one of my worst parts of school and what I used to hate and what used to get my back up the most was when you used to get punished as a class for something that a couple people did. That my head just couldn't compute.
Yeah, I was the one. I was the one doing the naughty stuff.
Yeah,
so
you're I was like, that fucking asshole over there.
But then, fair, is it?
But then I joined the club, mate. I was like, fuck you. Then I'll start disrupting as well if you want. Like there was definitely a shift there. In terms of, we speak about your critical mind. We speak about, like you've mentioned George Orwell today. For any of you who haven't read 1984 or listened to the podcast, go read it, just to give you a bit of perspective on the world. But when we are in I would consider a lot of people to think that, or may even subconsciously not know, or that they are thinking that they are in an uncertain environment at the minute. How can we give them more certainty?
I think you have to look from it within yourself. I think it's actually a very dangerous place. I mentioned authority before. I absolutely respect authority, and I think it should be there, right? In times of high stress and uncertainty, there'll definitely be authority figures, whether that's another person or an industry. If there's a burglar in my house, I'm not trying to solve that problem myself. I'm making sure I'm safe, and I'm ringing the police, right?
Yeah.
However, I think Mother Teresa might have said this, like, if you want to change the world, you change yourself. So in times of unpredictability and uncertainty where we are now, looking for the government or whoever to save you is actually a very disempowering attitude. Because what does that represent? That means you're subconsciously signing a contract with yourself. I'm not in control of my life at all. These people are, and I am their servant. I don't like that. I think we should have a relationship with authority where we're like, yeah, we need them and they need us.
Need you at times of crisis or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the deal. That's the exchange of value. But I'm not giving up my authority and my autonomy for you to think. That's a nanny state. You know that term, like a nanny state? Like, obviously, what George Orwell writes about things like that, where we've totally given up our power and autonomy in thinking. That's the entire concept of George Orwell's book, 1984. You're not allowed to think anymore. The thought police exist. If you have the wrong thought, that's a crime. It's like, that's obviously, it's a story, but we can start to see how this is engineered in society. So to think is an act of freedom. And if you want to change the world, just change the way you think.
Yeah. Like, you can't think that. It's such a, I don't know, mind-blowing statement, because sometimes you can't even control where your thoughts go anyway, can you?
No, you can't. You can't control your thoughts. You can just, like, question them.
Yeah.
You mentioned before about uncertainty. If I've experienced uncertainty in my life, which talk about, like, lockdown, I was a PT on the floor, literally in that gym over there. It's across the road, mate. My income gone overnight, about £2,000 a month. Gone. I didn't know what to do. To talk about uncertainty, I've got bills to pay, I've got this, I've got that, I've got no money coming in. What the hell do I do? I could have sat and blamed Boris Johnson. I could have hid behind the sofa and cried like everyone else was doing. Could apply to the government for self-employed stuff. I didn't. I went, right, what am I going to do? How can I create my own certainty? So if you want to change the world, you change yourself. If I want to create more certainty in my world, I need to create more certainty within myself. I asked myself what I was good at. I asked myself what problems I could solve. I asked myself what people could benefit from the problems that I solve, and I put together some sort of offer. And 5 years later, here I am with the result of the experience I've learned from thinking like that. So if you want more certainty in the world, give it to yourself. Don't look for it from outside, give it to yourself. Have those people in positions of power, whether it's governments or authorities or social workers or whatever, they're always there to help. But if you rely on them, you're already lost because you've agreed subconsciously in your own mind, I'm not in control of my own life. I'm this helpless little person who cannot change anything about my world. That's wrong. Always empower yourself. Try and be as empowered as you possibly can and say, I'm in control of the driving seat. I can't control everything, but there's certainly things I can control by asking better questions. That's what thinking critically is.
Insane, mate. Incredible. Final couple questions for today's podcast, dude. The first one is, it is actually it's UK Mental Health Day today, or World Mental Health Day today. If you were to look back at or have a conversation with a version of Sam Gibson that was depressed, unhappy, going through the panic attacks, what would be the one thing that you would say to him in that moment?
I know exactly what I'd say. So I've name dropped a lot of people today. Jordan Peterson, you know him, right? So when I was actually struggling with anxiety, depression, and things like that back in the day, and I was having these panic attacks, and I talk about it in the book, but I was feeling suicidal at one point. I remember just in an act of desperation, I went on like YouTube and typed in like how to get over anxiety or something like that. And then I seen this video of Jordan Peterson, never seen him before, and I just clicked on it. He was talking about anxiety, and he said something that it still stays with us to this day. Probably the inspiration to write this book. He went, people who struggle with anxiety are creative people who are not being creative enough. So I think mental illness is often a side effect of a lack of creativity. And I think so many people that don't know how to be creative, they don't know what that is. So we mentioned before about the hobbies and the have something meaningful. How did you say it, your 20% thing? What's it called? Have a meaningful project. Having
something that you're passionate about or
passion,
you can work on. Yeah.
That. If I looked at my life back then, when our mental health was really struggling, it was after I finished uni and I had these goals and dreams that I'd like just walk into a job, be a PE teacher or something, or work in a gym or whatever. I did have a job in a gym, but it was 0-hour contract, so I would go weeks without getting a shift. So I was skint, mate. I was living at home. I'm 23-year-old. I'm to knock on my mum's door in the morning and go, can I have a $5 for the bus? Like, I'm a 23-year-old man-child who's like solely reliant. I felt so just useless, right?
Disempowered.
And I didn't know what to do. So between launching my business in 2018 and leaving uni in 2017, I hit rock bottom. And I wasn't looking after myself. Like I say, I talk about in the book, I was using drugs, I was drinking heavily, my eating was out of control, my relationships were toxic, I was blaming the world for how I felt. I was in a really bad time. But if I look back now, and especially what Jordan Peterson said, anxiety is a side effect of not being creative enough. I wasn't doing anything, mate. I was waiting for the world to treat me better. I was waiting for an opportunity to drop on my lap and say, there you go, it's going to save you. So my advice for anyone who's struggling, especially young people, is this might come across as harsh, but I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm trying to empower people.
This is advice to you as well, right?
Yes, this is advice to me. Any advice to give to anyone else is also secretly advice to me.
Yeah, right, for sure.
No one's coming to save you, and that's fucking amazing. Because then there's only one option. It's you. So I had a long, hard look at myself, and I was like, I'm not doing anything. So the idea that I got was, right, I'm not being creative enough. How can I be more creative? I started posting on social media. I started writing little articles about nutrition. All of a sudden, people are messaging, Sam, can you do as a diet plan? One person leads to two person leads to three. Before I know, I've got 10, 20 people paying us £50 a month for online coaching. Now I'm getting personal training clients. Now I make a post on social media saying I've got 5 spaces for PT. Who wants it? Within half an hour, there's £1,000 in my bank account because people have paid us £200 for the month. Space is filled. Oh my God, now I've got a purpose. Now I've got something meaningful. That wouldn't have never started if I never realized that maybe my anxiety is creative energy that's got nowhere to go. Everything's energy. Everything's made out of this table, us, particles, atoms, energy. It's all energy, right? We learned this in school. Energy can't be created nor destroyed, only transferred. So maybe mental illness is a build-up of stagnation of energy. It's not being utilized and it's blocked. And it comes out in physical symptoms, panic attacks, palpitations, depressive thoughts. And that's what it was for me. So many people who are struggling with depression and anxiety, they don't know what creativity is and they're not doing anything with that energy. And you need to transfer it into something meaningful, whether that's a passion project, a business, a physical outlet, an exercise goal. So many people talk about the start of their mental health journey. You might have. I just ran a marathon. I just got the idea out of nowhere. I ran a marathon. All of a sudden, I feel like I'm cured. That did more for me than 10 years of therapy. Like, you hear these stories every day, you know? That's the example of energy can't be transferred. Can't be created nor destroyed. You just transfer it into something creative. That is the answer for all mental illness, and we're not talking about that as a country. We need to have more creativity.
Yeah, and more conversations like this, dude. And the final question for today is going to be turned into a reel. The meaning of feeling 100%, what does it mean to you?
Ooh, feeling 100%. Maybe back to what I've just said. Like, if you've got something meaningful, like, it'll help you get through anything in your life. Like I mentioned before about all the struggles around this book, and one of the reasons why I knew I had to do this year, I was waking up on a morning, and the temptation to snooze my alarm and turn back over was there again. I've never felt that in years, mate. That was a red flag to me. I'm like, why am I not motivated for life anymore? I stagnated. I went through that all again. I wasn't being creative enough. So I used my past experiences, but when I was going through a bad time before, what was going on? But the reality is I caught it so fast this time because I'm now self-aware and I've been doing this for years. So I think to be 100%, it's just to have something that is just so exciting. Whether that's a small little hobby, whether that's you building some sort of legacy. I think a lot of people might have that, have a family, they might have kids. That might be the thing. It's that you've got to have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. And if you can have a reason when you're really tired, but that alarm goes off and you're like, fuck it, I'm getting up anyway, you're at your best. Like, can life get any better than that? Your alarm goes off at 6 a.m. and you are bouncing out the house to get up. I love that. I love that feeling. I need that. When I don't have that, it's like I immediately slip back into depression. So to me, to be 100% means you've got to have a reason to be. I think you manage your health, manage your sleep, all the basic stuff that maybe other guests answer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think deeper than that. I'm like, you've got to have a reason to get up. What's the reason for you need to be 100%? It's got to be something deeper.
Class, brother. Sammy G, where can people come and find you and buy your book if they want to come and find out more about what's in store in that book?
Yeah, so the best place to buy my book would just be on my own website, really. So, or on my own landing page, rather. You can find it on Amazon if you want to buy it on there, but I do prefer to sell it myself, or because you get loads of extra bonuses, the free ebook, the free audio, if you buy it directly from me. So the best thing to do is go on my social media, Sam Gibson Emotional Eating Coach on Facebook. You'll see it in my bio, or Sam Gibson Limitless on Instagram. And you'll see it in my bio as well.
We'll put whatever link you've got in our description as well, Scott.
Yeah, if you get it from me, you'll get the audio book and the ebook version for free, so you get extra bundles, and you'll also be automatically subscribed to my email list, my newsletter, where I send loads of tips and tricks out 4 times a week. Really valuable information on overeating, mindset, dealing with emotions, so you get all that as well. If you do want to go on Amazon and buy it yourself, you absolutely can. It is there. But if you do it with me, you'll get all the bonuses.
Class. Sammy, thank you very much for coming on to the show. If you have enjoyed today's episode with Sam Gibson and I, please go over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, drop a little 5-star review on the show. It goes a long, long way to helping. And if you're watching on YouTube, what's up? Drop like, subscribe below. Again, helps boost the algorithm and gets more of this content to you. We'll see you here for an episode every Friday. Take care.